Hi everyone, this is Miss Faina working out the review for test number 1. So looking at question number 1, which table represents y as a function of x? Remember, when we see y as a function of x, what that is asking us is what represents a function. Okay, so remember, to be a function, x's cannot repeat. X's cannot repeat. So let's look at answer choice F. I'm going to zoom in. So answer choice F, we're looking at our x's, and if I notice, I have a -5 and a -5, and they're going to two different y values, two different outputs. So therefore, this is not a function, so we do not want that as our answer choice. Looking at option G, we have 6, -6, 8, -8. So no x's are repeating. So this could be an answer choice. So I'm going to put a question mark. Looking at letter H, notice I have the 3's that repeat and the 1's, the -3's and the 1's. So therefore, it's not a function because they are going to different outputs. Okay, one's either going to -4 and one is going to +4. So that does not work. Looking at answer choice J, every single x value is the same. They're all going to different y values. So therefore, that does not work. So our correct answer is G. Okay, number 2, it says create a set of ordered pair that does not represent y as a function of x. Well, you have some options. One, you could come up with your own. The answers are going to vary, so just because your answers may look different than what I put doesn't mean they're wrong. Or, if I were you, maybe I would use the points from the table. We had 3 examples right here of things that were not a function. You could reuse those points. It doesn't say you have to create your own. Okay? So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use answer choice F. So I'm going to say my points are -5, -5, 3, -2, -5, +5, -3, -2. Again, my 5's repeat to different y values. Okay, and then the second half of the question, make sure we read it and explain why it's not a function. Well, why is it not a function? The x value, it was -5, goes to two different y values. Okay, or you can say the x's repeat. As long as you can demonstrate that you know what represents not a function or what represents a function. Okay, again, these are some open-ended questions, so it can vary some. Okay, number 3, it says create a graph that represents y as a function of x and represent why it is a function. So now we want to draw a picture of something that could be a function. Remember, to be a function, it has to pass the vertical line test. Okay, it needs to be able to pass the vertical line test. So I'm going to give you 2 different examples. So first we'll start off with this. I'm going to do it as points. So I'm going to graph some points. So I could have a point here, could have a point here. Just remember, you can't have 2 points on the same x value. I'll do one here. And let's go way over here. I'm going to add one over here too. Okay, so I just put a bunch of random points. It passes the vertical line test because none of my x values are the same. Done. Okay, another option you could have is you could have something that is more of a continuous graph, one that flows, that's not just a bunch of points. Okay, so what I mean by that is something that looks maybe like a line. Okay, as long as it's not a vertical line, we're good. Or maybe you want something, you want to try to add some cool little hills and valleys, as I like to call them. So maybe you want it to curve more. Okay, those are some examples of functions. So you have a lot of different options. And now we would need to explain why it's a function. I kind of said that earlier. Because they passed the vertical line test. Okay, they passed the vertical line test. No x values repeat. Lots of different ways you can say it. Okay, so there's that. Now, number 4, we need to make sure that we are showing our work with this so we can receive credit, because it says if you don't, then you don't get credit. So show our work. So given f of x equals 3x plus 4, what is the value of f of negative 3? So remember, it's originally f of x. We are now replacing this x right here with the number negative 3, which means we need to substitute this value in right there. We need to replace it, plug it in. So I have 3 times negative 3 plus 4. So 3 times negative 3 is negative 9 plus 4. Remember, we're doing order of operations, PEMDAS. So parentheses, multiplication. Okay, now we add negative 9 plus 4. If you're not sure, use a calculator. Okay, you can also use a number line if that helps you. Draw it out on a number line and then count. But negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. So that's my answer. Now, we want to be good little mathematicians, so we're going to go ahead and say f of negative 3 is equal to negative 5. And that's the best possible way, and you can show us you really understand this math if you can write it that way. Okay? You can also write it as a point. Okay? So you can really show that you know, so negative 3 was the x, the y was negative 5. And we have that option as well. So we have a point right here. So there's our point. Okay. Now, the next part. It says given the ordered pairs. So it gives us some ordered pairs. It wants us to create the following representation. So we want to change these points into a table. We want to put them into mapping. And we want to be able to graph them. So remember, the first one is always your x. The second one is always your y. So I'm going to list 3, 0, 2, 2, 0, negative 1, and negative 2, 3. Okay? Now, when I go to the mapping, I want to list them in order from smallest to biggest. So I'm going to start with negative 2 because that's the smallest number given. 0, 2, and 3. If I had a number that repeated, I would not need to write it twice. That's where the 2 arrows would leave the one number. So this is x. I'm going to plug my y values on the other side. So again, I'm going to put them from smallest to biggest. So it's going to go negative 1, 0, 2, and 3. Now I need to draw the arrows. Okay, so remember, 3 goes to 0, so I'm going to draw an arrow from 3 to 0, like that. My lines aren't that great, sorry. Okay, 2 goes to positive 2, so positive 2 to positive 2. Looks like that. 0 goes to negative 1. And negative 2 goes to positive 3, so it goes all the way down here. So yeah, it does look a little chaotic, but that's okay. So there's your mapping. Now we want to graph. So remember, this is our x-axis right here. This is our y-axis. We move our x's left and right, our y's up and down. So the first one we have is 3, 0. So I'm going to go over 3 and then up 0, so the point's right there. That's 3, 0. Now I have 2, 2, so I go over 2 in the positive direction and up 2. So a point right there. Then I have 0, -1, so I start in the middle because that's 0, 0, and I go down 1 and I have a point. And last but not least, I have -2, 3, so I go over to the left 2 in the negative direction and I go up 3 and I plot a point. Okay, lastly, it says, is it a function? And explain. Well, did any of our x values repeat? No, they didn't. So yes, it is a function. Okay, explain. None of the x values repeat. Sorry, my handwriting's getting a little sloppy. Okay, none of the x values repeat. So yes, it is a function. Next, number 6. Ooh, it's going to make you think some. It says label the points from the graph. Label the points from the graph. So you may want to number the lines. You may not need to. Okay, but point A. So point A is right here. So we go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my x value. And we go up 1, 2, 3. So 4, 3. Okay, I'm going to switch colors. Okay, letter B is down here. So this goes over 1, 2, 3, 4 as well. But it goes down. So let me go ahead and write the 4. But it goes down 1, 2, 3. So since it went down, it went in the negative direction. Go ahead and switch colors. Let's go to red. Letter C, it's way down here. So this one goes 1, 2, 3. So that's my x. And it's going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, we went down 5, so it's -5. Okay, let's switch over to green. Answer, or letter D. Letter D is way down here. So now we're going in the negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a -4. And we're going down 1, 2, 3. -3. And last but not least, let's go with purple. Okay, letter E. Letter E, we're going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the negative direction. -5. And it goes up 1, 2, 3. Now, would this be a function? Would the graph that they gave us be a function? So let me erase some of my mess. Would the graph be a function? Would it pass the vertical line test? Okay, think to yourself, does it? And the answer is no, because right here, A and B both hit that vertical line, so this would not be a function. That's just being a little extra. It's okay to be extra. Okay? Now, number 7, use the graph to answer the following questions. Okay, what is f of 4? Remember, that's telling me x equals 4. What is the y value? So I go on my graph. Okay, I go over 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to figure out where is it hitting my graph. It's hitting my graph way up here. Right there at that point. What is that y value? That y value is 8. So f of 4 equals 8. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch colors for you. So, what is f of -2? Well, that's telling me x equals -2. So I come over here. I find -2 on the graph, so -2 is right here. And I have to go up and find where my function is. So it's right there. And what is that y value? That y value is 5. Okay, f of 8. So I'm going to go ahead and switch colors one more time. That's telling me x equals 8, because remember, it's originally f of x. So I go where 8 is. 8 is right here. And look, my graph is hitting that exact point. But what is that y value if it's on the x-axis? Yep, if you said 0, you were right. 0. So there's that. Okay. So number 8. It says, given f of x equals 2 times, remember if it's in parentheses, that means multiplication, 3 minus x. What is the value of f of negative 1? Well, remember, f of negative 1, it says x equals negative 1, so we're going to substitute that in. When we have negatives that we're plugging in for x, sometimes we like to put them in parentheses. So what I mean by that is you do 2 times 3 minus, and we're going to plug in that negative 1 for the x. So I'm going to put that negative 1 in parentheses like that and substitute it in like that. Now, remember, we learned way back when 2 negatives make a positive in class. Okay, or you may have changed that and changed that. Again, 2 negatives make a positive in math class, so makes it easier. Order of operations, PEMDAS, tells us we need to do parentheses first. Well, what is 3 plus 1? Well, 3 plus 1 is 4. Then you go to multiplication. What is 2 times 4? That equals 8. So f of negative 1 equals 8. Or you could write negative 1 comma 8. Either one of those would be accepted. Even just writing an 8 would be accepted because we're proud of you that you made it that far. Okay. Now, this last one was meant to make you think. There's lots of different options that you could have done to answer number 9. So I'll show you about 2 different ways. So create your own function rule using a variable x such that f of 3 equals 16. What this means is it wants you to write an equation. Rule is just another word for equation. Okay? Well, I know my x equals 3, my y equals 16. So we could say what? Well, I could do 16 minus 3. That would give me what? 13. So I could say f of x equals x plus 13. And we can always check our work to make sure it works out. So if I plug in 3 for x, I should get 16 for f of x or y. So if I say 3 plus 13, is 3 plus 13 16? Yes, it is. 3 plus 13 is 16, so 16 equals 16, so this would work as one of our rules. Okay, another rule we could have would be what? Anybody got anything else? Let's see. What is 3 times 5? So if I said 5 times 3, that would give me what? 15. If I add 1, that could give me 16, right? So instead of having the 3 here, I'm going to replace it with an x. So I get 5x plus 1 for f of x. So that's another option. So that one's there to make you think a little bit. Okay, we do want you to think. So that is the end of the review video. So hopefully this helped you if you had any questions. If not, please reach out to your teacher and keep working hard, Rangers.